Hello and good morning, afternoon, and evening, depending on when you're watching this. This is our section 2.1 or chapter 2, first part of chapter 2 video series for Spanish 3 at Heritage High School. I'm Mr. Moore. I'm going to be helping you out today and just explaining a few things here. Now, fortunately, unlike the last several weeks, there's a significant reduction in the amount of focused material for this week, which means that basically there's only one slide. I only have to explain one little bit to you, and some of it's pretty much review anyway. So I feel confident that you're going to find this to be quick and painless. There's some new vocabulary. A lot of the vocabulary is cognate based, meaning that many of the words have some similarities intermixed there. So we're going to look at those as well in just a moment. But let's go ahead and get right to it right now. So Español 3, 2.1, asking for and giving advice. So you're going to see a lot of things that having to do with like, I advise you to do this, and what do you recommend to me, and just that kind of vocab. But first, we'll go ahead and get started with this. I'm going to pause for just a moment. And here is your first slide. Maybe. There we go. Informal commands. So whenever we have what's called a mandato or a command in Spanish, this is telling someone to do something. Okay, now we call these ones informal because these are the most commonly used commands in Spanish. It's the tú form. There are usted commands or formal commands. We're going to worry about those a little bit later. So we'll just talk about positive and negative. Positive informal commands is telling someone to do something. Negative commands are telling them to not do things. So there's a pretty simple process for it. Affirmative informal commands have the same form as the la usted present tense. Okay, this says present indicative, but present tense is fine. So again, present indicative form just means present tense, basically. We'll talk more about indicative versus subjunctive a little bit later on. Anyways, a couple of examples of this. Come verduras, this means simply eat vegetables, okay? Come would normally be like he or she eats, but in this case, we're using it as a command form, and the context sort of gives it away that it's a command. So, duerme bien is sleep well, comes from the verb dormir, the la and usted form of that. The other one is descansa más. Another way that, which is rest more. Now, another way that you can look at this is that it's like the tú form minus the s. So whatever the conjugation of the tú form is, minus the s is another way of looking at that. So there's a couple different ways you can kind of think about it. Okay, another one. To form negative commands, you're going to start with the yo form of the verb, and then you're going to drop whatever that ending. It's usually like like if it were mirar, it'd be miro. If it were comer, it'd be como. If it was escribir, it'd be escribo. And then, and this is where it gets a little bit weird. You'll add es for AR verbs and AS for ER and IR verbs. So what you're really doing is like you're almost taking the tú form endings and switching the ERs and the ARs and IRs. It's kind of convoluted, and we're certainly going to practice it more and explain it more in class too. But for example, normally the tú form would be no no mires, or would be, I'm sorry, normally the tú form would be miras. But in this case, it should be no mires. And I'll tell you what, since we're here right now, we're going to go ahead and fix an error that was created on here, because this should be, there we go, no mires. We'll save it to make sure everything is correct. And there we go. So no mires means don't look. No comas would be don't eat. And no escribas would be don't write. So those are just 3 examples of that. Obviously, lots more examples to come. If you have this, if this creates more questions than answers, feel free to throw them at me in class, okay? Let's move on to vocabulary real quick. And we will begin with asking for and giving advice. We've got several items on here. So, deberías is you should. Deberías is you shouldn't. And both of these are conjugations of the verb deber. This is the conditional form of deber. This is the present indicative form of deber. We're going to talk more about what that actually means later, but just all you need to memorize right now is what they mean. So, ¿puedes darme algún consejo? Is, can you give me some advice? ¿Qué debo hacer? What should I do? ¿Qué me aconsejas hacer? What do you advise me to do? ¿Qué me recomiendas hacer? What do you recommend for me to do? Sería bueno. It would be nice if you, now this would be one of those things where it's a sentence fragment, so you have to make sure to put some sort of non-conjugated infinitive afterwards. Like, sería bueno dormir bastante. It'd be nice to sleep enough, something like that. Te aconsejo plus infinitive, I advise you to, dot, dot, dot. And te recomiendo plus infinitive would be like, I recommend that you, dot, dot, dot. So you obviously put in infinitives after each one of those. Okay, continuing on real quick. Got a few more here. Agobiado is to be worn out, absolutely beat, okay? Agotado, a little bit different, just means exhausted. It's very similar, but not the same. This literally means the word exhausted, okay? Now, you could probably figure out what a lot of these mean just by looking, but aliviar el estrés, to alleviate stress. Ansioso is another one of those that's just a little bit, it looks similar. It's just not exactly the same. It means anxious. Causar el estrés, to cause stress. Cuidarse, to take care of or to care for. Estar rendido is another one of those slightly weird ones where it has to do, it's like agobiado. It means to be worn out, not like the adjective worn out in general, but estar rendido is to be worn out. It's slightly different. It's a verb form of the same adjective. We'll hammer that out a little more in class. Hysterical, hysterical. Llevar una vida agitada, to live an agitated life or to have a very busy life. Ponerse nervioso is to get nervous. Reírse is to smile. Relajarse is to relax. Resolver un problema is to resolve a problem, to fix a problem. Sufrir de presiones. Now, that's another one where obviously you see the verb sufrir. So it's going to be to suffer. And then presiones is like saying that you're being pressured, has the word pressure kind of in it. But it doesn't mean to suffer pressure. It's to feel pressured. Okay, so it's a slightly different connotation to it. Sufrir de tensiones looks like it should be to suffer tension, but it just means to be tense. Tomar las cosas con calma, all right? It's like to take things with calm is the literal translation. It just means to be a calm person, to be laid back, etc. So I hope that this was a relatively helpful video for you. And we're going to not be doing any extra credit this week. I hate to make you mad about that, but it's okay. There's a couple other treats that we have in store for you. We're going to announce those in class. I hope all is well. I hope this is helpful for you, and have a great rest of your week.